Good day and welcome to the Megacast on 89.3 Lakes FM, lakesfm.com, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio out of Auburn Hills at Avondale High School, and on TV on Civic Center TV, Comcast Channel 15, and AT&T Channel 99, that service of our good friends at the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission, and then the Birmingham Area Municipal Access television station serving Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin. That is BAMA, the Birmingham Area Municipal Access television station. That makes up our family of stations here on the Megacast. Good Wednesday morning. I am Tyler Kieft. Dave Scott is on assignment today. Making headlines today. There's plenty in the news, as always, regarding the coronavirus. And for all of that coronavirus information that you need to know, we have that resource for you exclusively on CivicCenterTV.com. You log that into your favorite browser and just click right on over to coronavirus. Go to CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, and here we have headlines for you from all throughout the state of Michigan, headlines for you from your local area here in Oakland County, as well as resources, national, state, and local, for you at your fingertips. And making headlines today, Governor Whitmer extends executive orders enabling remote transactions and easing fuel tax requirements. The state of Michigan will continue to temporarily allow e-signatures on official documents, as well as remote notarization to avoid unnecessary in-person contact. So you're able to fill out your legal forms a little bit easier and ease your worries as well of having to violate or put at risk your social distancing measures to prevent COVID-19. We'll talk a little bit more about this with Deputy Police Chief Curt Lawson here in a few minutes. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel has confirmed some of Governor Whitmer's orders that Governor Whitmer's executive orders are enforceable under the Emergency Powers Act of 1945 and say that Whitmer's orders are valid and enforceable. The House GOP members voted to give the Speaker authority to sue the governor if she continued to extend the Michigan's state of emergency without the legislature's approval. So that, of course, a hot button issue right now here in the Great Lakes state here in Michigan, but Dana Nessel confirming that the governor does have those powers under the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act of 1945. You may be violating social distancing guidelines and be caught on camera. If you are violating them, Big Brother may be watching. Drones have been reported hovering over golf courses and playgrounds in Bloomfield Township, outside convenience stores in the city of Detroit. Watching for big crowds, and it's expected that more specialized cameras will be in place in some shopping centers as the economy begins to reopen. A quote here from Bridge, Michigan, quote, "Until a vaccine is widely available, public health experts say medical surveillance may play an important role in any plan to loosen the stay-at-home orders and other restrictions that government leaders have enacted in order to confront COVID-19. So, again, we can't stress enough that it's best practice to maintain your social distance, to wear a mask out in public, and even more incentive now, you know, if you don't want to be the guy that's doing wrong in the community, and especially don't want to be caught on camera as well. So maintain your social distance and follow those orders. Those are just a few of some of our top headlines here on CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. And I encourage you to visit the website for even more information that you need to know about the coronavirus here in Oakland County. Today, a full lineup on our show. We got a great lineup for you in just a couple of minutes. We'll be joined by Deputy Police Chief Curt Lawson, who is from West Bloomfield Township and also their public information officer. A little bit after him, we'll be joined by Dr. Melanie Schwartz, a psychologist from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. And about 10:30, we'll be joined by Mark Cooper, an attorney at the Jaffe Law Firm, talk about some of the issues regarding returning to work and some liability concerns that may be coming up for businesses that they should be looking out for. And then in the second hour of the program, we'll speak with Alan Mindell. He's a local realtor. We'll tell you how's the housing market holding up with coronavirus. What's the future look like for buyers and sellers on the market? We'll hear about that from Alan Mindell. Then a really interesting interview. We'll get the perspective of our restaurateurs, our bars, and our lodging businesses in the state of Michigan from the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, John McNamara. And then at the tail end of the show, we'll speak to West Bloomfield Township Assessing Director Rob Scripture about the township's plans to reopen Town Hall. It is a multi-phase plan, a comprehensive plan that will depend on certain recovery guidelines and the numbers, the data about COVID-19 as well. But before we get to all of that, we begin today's show with one of our good friends, and a big thank you to the West Bloomfield Police Department for hosting us on Facebook over their Facebook Live. And I'm joined now via Zoom by Deputy Police Chief in West Bloomfield and Public Information Officer Curt Lawson. Curt, welcome again to the Megacast.
Well, good morning, Tyler. Great to be on your show again.
Yeah, great to have you. We always enjoy talking to you, Curt. So to start off, any updates or any important information the community needs to know right now from the local law enforcement community?
Well, first, I just want to echo what Fire Chief Greg Flynn said the other day about us wearing masks and getting used to wearing masks. And it's really something that we want to model for all of our residents. And it's not just the facial coverings that are important. That has to be combined with the hand washing, the disinfecting of commonly touched areas, and that social distancing. All of those grouped together is what's going to really push us through this, and we're going to reach the end of the light at the end of that tunnel.
Right now, a lot of businesses are reopening as restrictions loosen from the state and from local authorities as well. Have you been in communication with any of these businesses for any guidance and some tips or tricks that they can maybe enact at their location or at their place of work to do so safely? And what might some of those communications be?
Well, right now we're in the education business. We're not out there writing citations or placing people under arrest for violating the governor's orders, but we are out there educating. And there's been over 72 different executive orders that have come down that we have to interpret. And we rely quite a bit on Dana Nessel, our Attorney General, our Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, our local attorneys here to interpret those executive orders. And then we're educating the community, the business community. I've received so many calls from our golf courses on different questions that they have, because there is a lot of gray areas. So we're just really all working together, and I couldn't be happier with our residents, our business owners, our community leaders. As we move through this difficult time, we're all working really well together. And I think, it could be a whole lot worse. I don't think all communities are doing as well as we're doing, working our way through this crisis.
So you spoke a little bit about Dana Nessel and her office's help in clarifying some of these orders and helping your team and other local law enforcement better enforce these new regulations and these new laws under the emergency powers. What kind of clarifications were you looking for? What did you receive? And how is that reflected in how law enforcement locally is acting at the moment?
Well, not surprisingly, as we get closer to the election, we're seeing politics kind of rear its head here, and it doesn't matter what side you're on, but there was an email that went out from Dana Nessel's office from her spokesperson to law enforcement that said to proceed with caution because the Republican-led legislature had challenged the Emergency Management Act of 1976, and they did not extend that. So the Emergency Powers Act was put into effect, the 1945 Governor's Act that continued the stay-at-home, continued the restrictions that are currently in place. So Dana Nessel did come out. She sent an email, a letter to all the chiefs of police stating that she felt that the orders that were put in place are lawful. So it's her determination that we're going to continue to stay the course, and law enforcement is going to continue to educate and enforce the governor's executive orders.
You've touched a lot so far on the importance of education as we come out of this crisis slowly but surely. And the last time we had you on, we talked a lot about families making a plan to reacclimate themselves to society as kids go back to playing with their friends and mom and dad go back to work and in the office and so on. right now, you said, and we talked off air just before the show, that educating kids has been a huge part lately of that education effort by the police department. What sort of things are you educating kids on? How are you going about that?
Well, it's just not the police department or the fire department that's doing that educating. It's really got to be the parents. And I know that you have Dr. Melanie Schwartz that's going to come on later on in the show, and she's going to dive into this probably a little bit more, and she can give her professional opinion. But I think it's so important that parents talk to their kids about what is going on, that they remain calm, that they are reassuring, that they listen to their kids' concerns. And, it's okay to reduce their exposure to online content and the news media. Make sure that they're providing accurate information that they can find from the CDC or oak.gov, and then teach them proper hygiene. And that proper hygiene, once they're taught that, is going to help them well into the future. Once we get past COVID-19, into the flu season and other issues that we're going to have down the line. So it's just important that parents take this time, because they are in the house together with the kids 24/7. It's a good time to teach them these important tips.
And on top of that, it's good for everyone to be practicing these as well, regardless of if you're young or old, or where you're at. Practicing these social distancing guidelines and wearing your mask to protect yourself and protect the public. But some people may not comply. That's just a fact of reality with anything, with any law and with any social practice, that some people are just not going to comply. But in public, if you're in a public place and someone's not wearing a mask, or you see a group of people and they're not social distancing, should you confront them? Should you ask them about it? What should you do in terms of communicating with law enforcement? What's the best practice for civilians like me out there if I'm seeing someone that's not complying?
I think the best thing that you can do as a civilian is just model the recommendations that we're providing, that the CDC is providing, to do that social distancing, to wear your facial coverings in public. I just went to Costco in Bloomfield Township the other day, and I was amazed and very happy to see that everyone in that store, whether they were working or they were customers, were wearing facial coverings. And then I had to stop by Dunham's in a township north of us, and I was horrified to see that about 70% of the people in that store did not have facial coverings. So we really are pleading with our residents and the community to take those proper steps, wear your facial coverings, and keep that social distancing. I know that we're all anxious to go outside, and we had a little excitement with the warm weather last weekend, but really this colder weather, the rainy weather, is not a bad thing. It's keeping people inside, and we're seeing a flattening of that curve, which we were looking for. But we have to keep the social distancing, the proper hygiene, as we move forward, even if the curve is flattened, because what we don't want is in the fall to have this a spike later in the fall. And that's one thing we don't want, because then we're going to go through all of this again. We're going to have our businesses shut down, our schools shut down, and that's what we don't want.
The Michigan State Police, we saw a report this morning from the Detroit Free Press that the state police is saying they're seeing less traffic, but they're seeing a little bit more uptake in speeding. With there being less cars on the road with social distancing guidelines, people may be driving a little bit quicker than they should be or than they normally do. Law enforcement, on your end, you guys have seen a lot of vehicle accidents in normal times, and even have probably seen a good few in these times. How dangerous, can you just go in just a little bit before I let you go, about how dangerous speeding really is?
Well, traffic has always been a concern here in West Bloomfield, and it has been one positive thing since the beginning of March, is that we've had significantly less traffic on our roads and a lot less traffic accidents. Overall, our run rate within the police department has been lower since the beginning of March. Just in the past week, we've seen a little bit of an uptick. Over that 1 month period or 2 month period, we've seen more family troubles, more domestic violence incidents, about a 10% increase. But overall, in the police world here in West Bloomfield, our run volume is lower. And within our fire department, it's been significantly higher since the beginning of March. But the fire department's done an absolutely outstanding job through this entire crisis.
All of our local law enforcement, our first responders, they've been doing fantastic work, keeping the community safe, and as we've talked about, keeping the community informed and educated, because it's a tough situation. We aren't going to learn everything on our own, and there's going to be some trial and error. But having some pillars in the community that have done the research, have been a part of this emergency response, and can help us out, it's really helpful, and it hopefully will continue to make our society that much safer. So, Curt Lawson, Deputy Police Chief and Public Information Officer in West Bloomfield Township. Anything else that we haven't gone over yet that you'd like to say, or that's important for the community to know?
Well, I think you are providing a great service at Civic Center TV. You're really pushing out verified information, and I'm trying to do the same thing with my team here, with our public information team, as we're pushing information out through the township website, the police Facebook, Twitter. So I just appreciate your partnership, and we're trying to educate our residents on how they can be safe. And like I said, we're going to get through this all together.
Yes, we will. Thank you very much. Curt Lawson, Deputy Police Chief and Public Information Officer in West Bloomfield Township. Thank you for joining us, Curt.
Thank you, Tyler. Have a great day.
You as well. Deputy Police Chief Curt Lawson, a good friend of ours, and we thank him and his department in West Bloomfield for hosting us on their Facebook page via Facebook Live today on the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You're watching us on Civic Center TV and on Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, or BAMA, from Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin. You're also listening to us on our family of radio stations. Our flagship, of course, right here, 89.3 Lakes FM and lakesfm.com. In Bloomfield Hills, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, under the guidance of station manager Ron Whittables, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, a service of the Avondale School District, with Logan Pizzurro hitting the buttons over there. We thank him very much. He's doing an excellent job. We're going to take a very short break and return with Dr. Melanie Schwartz, psychologist at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. You are watching and listening to the Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonay Caldoun. We know that COVID-19 is spreading rapidly across Michigan right now. The most important thing people can do to protect themselves is social distancing. That means unless you are a critical infrastructure worker or going out to get food or medicine for your home, you should be staying at home. Stay home, stay safe, save lives.
Hi, my name is Curt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Watching and listening to the Megacast, Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, 89.3 Lakes FM, WBFH 88.1 The Biff, WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. I'm Tyler Keefe, welcoming you back to our program, serving the Oakland County area with local news and information about the coronavirus as it affects our great area here in Oakland County, our state of Michigan, and right in your backyard in your hometown. And part of our duties in doing that is being joined by a slew of excellent guests and knowledgeable people, including Dr. Melanie Schwartz, psychologist at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. Dr. Schwartz, thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How are you doing? How's your team, your family?
We're doing good over here. I mean, taking it day by day. That's what we can do.
So, right now we're seeing a lot of industries reopen. We're seeing society start to kind of reemerge, and it can be kind of scary for some people that may not want to come back out to go to work, or may not want to go out to the parks and go out to stores and so on. What do you suggest that maybe they can do to help overcome some of those fears as they reemerge from their homes and try to come back to some semblance of normalcy?
Well, I think there's a few things that can happen. I think number one, you have to follow what the experts are telling you. Wear your mask, keep your distance, wash your hands. That's what makes you feel like you have some control in all of this. And those are the things that will keep you safe. And I think don't just kind of jump out there. Maybe take small little steps. Maybe it's, if you haven't gone even to a grocery store, maybe it's stepping into a grocery store. Maybe it's, just going to your office for an hour or two, just to kind of feel it out, see your comfort level, see what's going on. Those of us who have been quarantined and just have not left the house at all, it can be very intimidating if you haven't gone out there to see what's going on. So my advice would be just take baby steps out there.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. You got to go step by step, do little things at a time. I've been going pretty much through this entire process from my home and into the office, and occasionally just to the stores. But even initially, it was tough. And on the weekends, I would have to go out and run errands and go grocery shopping and that kind of thing. And it's tough psychologically to
Yes.
get yourself to the point where you're comfortable making those baby steps, and then you got to just kind of find a time that's comfortable for you. And does that vary person to person? Is there a set kind of guideline with that?
I think it depends on your level of anxiety about it. Obviously, some people are more at the extreme ends of this and have a lot more anxiety and fear of germs and things like that. Those people, you have to take it very, very slow, whereas some people are much more comfortable going to the stores right now, or going to their office, or going to get gas, or going for walks. So it really just depends on your level of anxiety about this. But just do what you're comfortable with. Don't push yourself too much, because that's not good for you. Just kind of prove to yourself, see that there is safety practices out there, and that you're not walking out into a danger zone. Okay, that people are doing what they need to do to stay safe.
And we have a lot of variations that are coming into our lives too right now. With new guidelines. We got to wear our masks. We got to keep that social distance. And I found it, at least initially in this, and even to some extent now with the mask requirements out in public. I'm not wearing one in the studio right now. It's just me in here today. But even just wearing the mask normally when you get out of your car and you're going into the grocery store, when you're in the office but not in the studio, it's tough to break out of your usual routine and your usual habits. Why are these kind of simple things like wearing a mask, keeping 6-foot distance, why can those be so tough to become norms in somebody's routine?
Well, people don't like change. So that's one reason. There's a variety of reasons. I mean, I was out on Sunday driving to a store, and I saw a lot of people not following the social distance measures, which was interesting to me to watch. And it was interesting to see, and figure out the reasons why that's happening. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, as far as teenagers go, which I have seen over the weeks, a lot of teenagers who have not necessarily been making changes or following social distance practices. Their reason is teenagers think that they're invincible to some degree, that nothing's going to happen to them. So it's hard for them to make changes when they think that they're going to be fine, that there's no issues. As far as adults, they don't want to let go of what we're seeing on TV too. Some of them don't want to let go of their freedoms. Some want to defy kind of the guidance to feel like they have control in their lives still. Some people don't think that the virus is that dangerous because they haven't had any personal connection with it. So if it's not around them, it can't hurt them. There's a variety of reasons why this happens. And I think it's different for everybody. And there's also the denial piece that's been here since the beginning. And that's, kind of fueled by fear. But people feel that, it's not happening. People are over exaggerating, and that it's not really a big deal. So these are a lot of the thought processes that go on in people that are preventing them from making the choices that are going to keep them and everybody else safe.
And there's differences between everyone. Everyone has a different motivation for why they don't feel they need to participate or don't have a desire to, or just don't bring that into their routine. So let's go kind of step by step with that. You mentioned teenagers. You mentioned younger people that tend to think that they're invincible. How do you break through that? We talked a lot with education about educating your kids and your family with Curt Lawson earlier on, and with Greg Flynn yesterday. What are some of those strategies that parents can have and families can have to kind of break through that hard outer surface with these teenagers?
That one is pretty tough. I work with a lot of teenagers, and they do have this belief that they're invincible, and they're missing their friends, and so they're kind of just, they don't care anymore, so they're willing to do whatever it takes to be around their friends, and just not following the guidance or the guidelines that are out there. Really, like you just said, like Curt has said, education is key. If they aren't watching TV, I would encourage them to watch TV to some degree, to see what's really going on in the world. Because if they've been at home this whole time and they've been sheltered, or their parents have kept them from watching what's going on, let them get a glimpse of what's going on in the world. Let them see the reality of what's going on, because I don't necessarily think they always understand how dangerous this really is for them.
We're speaking with Dr. Melanie Schwartz, psychologist at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness on the Megacast, Civic Center TV, and BAMA, Birmingham Municipal Access Television, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 The Biff, WBFH, out of the Bloomfield Hills School District, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. So, Dr. Schwartz, on the other end of the spectrum here, you have older adults, you have young adults, you have just adults of all ages that may not want to comply as well. What are some strategies for loved ones, for friends, for colleagues to break through with them potentially?
I think it's hard because we don't have control over other people. So also what Curt was saying is model your own behaviors, your own safe practices. And that sometimes encourages other people to do the same. Lecturing someone isn't going to help. Educating will. So education, modeling, setting guidelines for your office. I know at our office we have, which has been running for certain therapists this whole time, we are just educating them on how to maintain safety. We have signs up all over the office, on the front door. We've adjusted procedures, and we just keep everyone up to date as the guidelines change and what's going to keep everyone safe. And so I think it's just a matter of educating and modeling.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz, psychologist at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. Locally, we just saw an article today from Local 4 News, WDIV TV, that Oakland County has formed a task force to reduce social isolation amongst senior citizens. It includes teaching them interaction with technology, more access to mental health care as well. What are some things that maybe you're seeing with your senior patients, or that your colleagues are seeing with their senior patients, that may be coming up as a result of this current crisis that we're in?
Well, both personally and professionally, my parents are elderly. They're just very isolated. They're definitely starting to feel depressed, lonely, especially people who live by themselves. It's probably the most difficult on them, because they're not great at technology. They don't know how to socialize with people. They just want to be with people in person. And so it's been very difficult for them. I've also seen some anxiety as well. I'm encouraging them to reach out to their family members, let their family members teach them how to use technology if they have that ability. I know a lot of people have done a lot of driveway interactions, backyard interactions while social distancing, because that's all you can really do right now. But I'm encouraging that as this goes on, and while it is, the elderly, obviously that is one of the most dangerous populations, they're going to need interactions and socialization while this is going on, because this is going to go on for a very long time with them. And so we're going to have to figure out ways to keep them engaged.
What are some of those ways that we can keep them engaged while maintaining our social distance, while keep ensuring that this vulnerable population is staying safe as well?
I think that, it's amazing to me. I've actually, with my family members to some degree, we have really educated them on how to do FaceTime calls, or how to do a Zoom call, or how to do even a Facebook group. We've taught them, we're teaching them, because we have to teach them how to use technology, since that's really the safest way for them to engage with others right now, so that they can do it with each other, with their friends, with their families. I know a lot of people are doing errands for the elderly right now, myself included. I'm doing all of the shopping for my parents. So, when I'm dropping off groceries and things like that, I'll stand on the driveway and talk to them for a period of time, just to get them to have someone to talk to face from a distance. I also think that encouraging them to reach out to each other just on the phone more than they normally do, because it's that important for them right now. And to just realize that this is just right now. It's not forever. It's not enjoyable for them, but we're going to get past this just like we get through everything else, and just to keep them in a hopeful state.
It isn't forever, and we are going to get through this. It's a long process. It's a tough process for everybody, and we just need to be there for each other. So before I let you go, Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, anything else that we should be aware of that maybe is popping up, different psychological issues or problems that we might be facing in the coming weeks that we can prepare for in some way and get ourselves out in front of?
I think, and I think I said this last time I was on, is be proactive about this. It's going to be very difficult to not come out of this with some form of mental health issue because of the trauma that it is, the trauma, the grief, the emotions that are coming from this experience. So stay on top of it. If you are struggling, talk to someone. There are many ways to do that, whether it's through a crisis line, whether it's through a friend, contacting a mental health practice or facility. Stay on top of it, because in the end, we're all going to have to deal with it, and better to deal with it when you're experiencing it than wait it out, because then it'll be more difficult. So just be more proactive about it and recognize when you're having a hard time dealing with it right now.
That is fantastic advice. Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz, psychologist at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, joining us on this Wednesday on the Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft. We will be back in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll return and speak to attorney Mark Cooper from the Jaffe Law Firm here on the Oakland County Megacast. You are watching us on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, and listening to us on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. Will return in just a moment with more from the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, watching us on Civic Center TV and on Birmingham Area Municipal Access television in West Bloomfield, Eagle Harbor, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, Birmingham, Beverly Hills, Bingham Farms, and Franklin. Welcome back. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studio. Mind me for just a few moments here. Those of you on television and listening on radio, as I'm just wiping down our studio, keeping this nice and clean, following that guidance and education from Deputy Police Chief Curt Lawson and our friends at the West Bloomfield Police Department, who are joining us today via Facebook Live as we continue on bringing you the news and the information you need to know from experts all throughout the Oakland County area. And those experts include our next guest, Mark Cooper, who is a partner and attorney at the Jaffe Law Firm. Mark, welcome to the Megacast.
Morning, Tyler. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Before we get into the meat of the interview, how are you? How's your team and your family? Everybody holding up okay?
We are. So far, we've been able to manage this and learn how to effectively work at home to some degree, particularly with all the kids here and all the activity associated with that, but we're doing fine.
That's great to hear, and it's a tough time. There's a whole host of issues that the coronavirus pandemic has brought up just across the board, but even on the legal end as well for businesses and for individuals. A lot of what you deal with as far as those legal issues is concerned involves insurance, and one of those coverage issues is business interruption insurance. For novices like me who haven't been to law school or don't work in insurance, explain this for us. What is business interruption, and what is that coverage like?
Sure. So business interruption is probably, for most people out there, the issue in the insurance world right now you're reading the most about in the news and hearing the most controversy about, because as a general rule across the board, most insurance companies are saying that these claims are not going to be covered. And this is the impact to the various businesses that we are seeing that is the greatest. So what business interruption expense is designed to do is to replace business income that is lost by a business as the result of what's referred to in the insurance industry as a covered event that interrupts the business operations. So a general or very broad example that you might ordinarily hear about is if a building is destroyed by fire and the company that operates in it can't perform its ordinary business functions any longer. If you have business interruption expense for a certain period of time, those losses can be covered.
Well, this isn't something necessarily that is this something that's included in most policies? Is this something that you have to add on?
So it's both. Most small business owners, which probably is the bulk of the people listening to this program, likely have some component of business interruption coverage in what is called a package policy that they buy for their company. So with that package policy, they're usually buying property insurance, general liability insurance that protects you against things like the slip and falls you always hear about. And you get some, usually about 12 months of business interruption expense within that coverage. Like anything else, if you're willing to pay more money, you can extend that time period and buy extended coverage. But even if you have just the basic coverage, it really is designed to include things like your loss of income plus all the operating expenses you lose during the time you're not in business, like payroll, taxes, loan payments you're obligated to make, even moving to a temporary location while your existing premises is rebuilt.
In a lot of insurance claims, you have to provide some sort of information or some sort of proof that makes that helps you prove your claim is legitimate. Is there anything that businesses have to have prepared in order to provide to the insurance company in order to have this business interruption insurance claim executed properly?
So there's a number of issues that are going to arise in the legal landscape related to these claims. The first, sort of setting aside how you would document a claim for the moment, is whether these claims are even going to be covered. And so the nature of the loss in the first instance is what companies are going to have to look at the most closely in conjunction with either their agent or broker or a lawyer who has experience in this area. And that's because most of these claims, the way the policies are written, require that there first be direct physical loss or damage to the property. And as you can tell from that definition, something like a pandemic, COVID-19, for instance, doesn't necessarily cause actual physical loss or damage to your premises. It instead maybe has to be cleaned up, sort of like some of the other issues we've seen in the insurance context in the past, like the SARS outbreak several years ago, or even the mad cow disease that went around. In those situations, most courts have said, unless there's some tangible difference to the property, the coverage doesn't even get triggered. So step one is to look at the language in each of these policies, because they are all very different, and determine whether, in fact, the claim is even covered. Once you reach that first issue, then we have to deal with the exclusions and all the other things people get frustrated about with insurance policies. So it is an uphill push in most of these situations.
And what legal backing or legal action can these companies take if they're making these claims? And obviously, with the pandemic, in most cases, you're not going to see that physical damage to the building or be able to prove that any sort of contamination necessarily. What legal action can they take to maybe help them get these insurance coverages and execute that claim that they desperately may need to keep their business alive?
It would be great, Tyler, if I could give you just a black and white answer to that. And I think that would alleviate a lot of concern that most of these businesses have. But like most other legal issues, every state has addressed these claims differently. As a starting point, insurance policies are reviewed by courts like any other contract. So the language in these policies are what drives how they get interpreted. In some states, like Michigan, for example, most of the courts that have addressed similar types of situations in the past have already said there has to be some kind of tangible damage to the property. Other courts in other states are a little more forgiving. There are, for example, situations where in big processing plants, there's been chemicals released in the air, and the only real issue is smell or odor, like ammonia, for instance. And courts in those jurisdictions have said that's sufficient. That does actually trigger the coverage. So I think what we're starting to see now is a growth of litigation against these insurance companies. One, just to put pressure on them broadly to maybe deal with what's becoming a broader social issue for these businesses. And two, there are some unique scenarios where the coverage could be afforded if the policy is written favorably to the insured.
So what do you see the future of business interruption coverage being? How will this change maybe how policies are constructed in the future? Maybe some legal changes in insurance law that may be a result of a situation like a pandemic that people didn't imagine was going to happen in our lifetime, didn't imagine would be making such a huge impact on their business, and that they would need some sort of insurance coverage for. Do you see there being any changes with that pressure you spoke of going forward after this crisis is over?
Well, I think there's the potential for some positive change, and the more likely outcome is to make these policies even more stringent in terms of how they get interpreted, because the insurance industry, if nothing else, is reactive to the kinds of risks that they face once they experience them. We've seen the insurance company tighten language and policy forms over the years in reaction to different kinds of large-scale crises, like the 9/11 event, for instance, after Hurricane Sandra, after the SARS outbreak. The policy language often changes and becomes more favorable to the insurance company. But what you see in exchange for that is various insurance companies will start offering very specific policies for very specific risks. So there's a company referred to as ISO. It's the Insurance Services Organization that sort of collaborates standard policy forms. It's already releasing a couple of potential very specific COVID coverage related endorsements that people can buy. There's no details about it yet, and no idea what the pricing would be, although I would assume it would be very high while we're in the midst of all this. But you'll see some changes like that where there are opportunities to buy specific coverage. The other area where there's the potential for some positive development is with the government. In the past, we've seen the government back certain coverage forms when it's become required to really support businesses. We saw in particular with the terrorism coverage that's now required to be offered as a part of commercial policies. That's often backed up to a certain percentage of losses by the government. So there's already talk about some legislation to create a similar kind of fund or program for pandemic-related losses. That's just in its infancy, but that's probably the most likely place people will see some relief and change.
Well, and if that is the case, where they see some relief and some change, that does include new policy law going forward, that would include different kinds of disasters like a pandemic that affects a business in a different way. I think that's something that could be a really positive change, even if it's just a slight change in and of itself. But hypothetical situation, you're months down the road after this is all said and done, someone's starting a new business. Let's say hypothetically, I'm starting a business, Megacast Industries. Mark Cooper, attorney at Jaffe Law Firm. What should businesses do as they're getting their business insurance set and ready to go as they're developing their business, to make sure that they have what can they do in partnership with their attorney, with their legal counsel, in order, and with their insurance company, in order to make sure that they have the coverages that they may need in the event of an unforeseen disaster like this COVID-19 pandemic, so that they can avoid situations where now they need insurance, they need this claim to go through so they can keep their business alive in the next disaster that comes along.
So there's a number of things that we generally look at when people are developing a new insurance program. And one of the things I always have to remind people of, and it's a difficult conversation often to have, is insurance doesn't cover everything. We can do our best as a risk management process to push the risk off to the insurance company to the extent possible, but you can't buy insurance for every potential loss, and you can't insure every potential claim. So what we generally do, working in conjunction with a client's insurance company through its agent, is just develop where the most likely risks are and what its highest level of risk is, and try to tailor what the company is purchasing through the insurer to best meet that. There's no guarantee that all claims are going to be covered, and no way to actually develop a program that would do it, but we can work around it as close as possible.
And transitioning now, as people are coming back into society, they're going back to work. More people are going to the stores, and more stores are opening up, and presumably in the hopefully near future, we'll have people foot traffic back in their stores. People are going to the parks. That brings up another issue, which is liability. Liability claims for insurance, and liability litigation potentially against companies or against organizations. What protections do businesses have from an insurance perspective and a legal perspective that may help shield them from those damages? And what can they do to maybe avoid potential litigation in those scenarios?
So those are two different questions in the context of risk management and insurance, and I'll try to give you a brief answer on each of them. The first is, what can you do with respect to avoiding or limiting your liability? And right now, what we're generally advising clients is that education for your consumers or people coming onto your property is key. So to the extent that you can advise people that they have their own obligations to protect themselves as well as others on your property, by adhering to the social distancing guidelines and the other recommendations that the CDC is making, then that goes a long ways towards establishing some personal responsibility in that environment. Similarly, most businesses, as long as they are acting reasonably under these circumstances by taking the proper precautions to clean their property and doing all the other things consistent with those same guidelines, that's the best way to protect themselves. I think, as you probably know, in this society, there's no way to limit personal injury lawsuits very effectively. Lawyers are going to pursue them. I would anticipate that this is going to be the next boom of litigation for a considerable amount of time. And so that raises your next question, and that is, does insurance generally cover these types of claims if someone's injured on the premises as a result of COVID? And the answer very broadly is probably yes. Most commercial general liability policies are going to be very different from property policies and should provide a defense to most companies if they get sued for these kinds of losses. I don't anticipate that that will be free of all fights with the insurance industry, but more broadly speaking, that is going to be a positive thing for most people with that kind of insurance.
And general liability insurance, what kind of protections does that generally provide to businesses?
So general liability insurance is the kind of insurance you think about in the context of personal injury lawsuits. So if someone slips and falls in a grocery store, for example, and then sues that company later because they claim, there was a wet spot on the floor that caused them the fall, the general liability insurance will provide that company with a lawyer to defend the case, and then it'll pay any judgment or settlement up to whatever policy limits you purchased for those losses. So it protects you almost entirely for those kind of claims.
And do you imagine that claims may be being made against companies, in this case with COVID out there, would generally be protected under these policies?
Yes, our initial review is that most of these claims should be covered. We also think there's a lot of defenses that are going to develop to these claims. For instance, how do you ever establish that you developed COVID, for example, by going to the grocery store, when that risk is the same risk you face everywhere else in the world right now? So there's a lot of issues that are going to have to be litigated over probably several years as this evens out. But generally speaking, I think most insurance companies will be there to backstop the claims that are brought against their insureds.
He is Mark Cooper, partner and attorney at the Jaffe Law Firm, here with us on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH, the Biff, WAHS, 89.5 Avondale Community Radio on the Megacast, also joined on television on Birmingham Municipal Access TV, or BAMA, and on Civic Center TV, and on Facebook Live on the West Bloomfield Police Department's Facebook page. Mark Cooper, do you mention there being what kind of third-party claims are likely to be filed in the immediate aftermath and going forward in the intermediate during this COVID-19 crisis?
I think the most likely kind of claim you're going to see is people claiming that they were exposed to COVID as a result of a company not properly maintaining its premises. So whether that is a tenant in a building, or someone in a retail establishment or a hospitality place like a restaurant or a movie theater or other event venue, those are likely the claims that you're going to see. Probably we'll see claims for both personal injury, where people have had a very difficult time with the illness, and unfortunately probably claims where people have died as a result of developing COVID. Those are the most likely third-party claims. Eventually, we may also see claims against the directors and officers of larger businesses for failure to anticipate these losses or manage them properly. The outreach on where these claims could go is frankly almost limitless at this point.
And do you imagine there will be more claims made against officers of companies and directors of companies related to like workmen's compensation issues in that case?
I think we've already started to see some of those claims filed. We try to track nationally all the lawsuits that are developing in this area so that we can try to determine what the trends are. We've seen some claims already filed by estates of employees who have died as a result of COVID, and they're claiming that they developed it while they were employed. So I think that we're just seeing the very beginning of the wave on where all this litigation is headed.
Right now, what can businesses do as they plan to return to normal operations and they're executing those return plans? What can they do from a legal standpoint, from an insurance standpoint, from a preparation standpoint, to either avoid the risk of a claim, or if disputes do arise, what can they do to protect themselves going forward?
So to avoid the disputes, I think that the biggest thing is what we talked about a little while ago, and that's the education component and the process of maintaining your own premises as a business owner consistent with all the guidelines that are out there. The best you can do is act as a reasonably prudent business owner in this in this environment. That's the standard by which you will be gauged to be negligent or to have been reasonable in your conduct. So following those guidelines, and I know there are a million resources out there and a lot of different issues being addressed by lawyers in other specialty areas like employment law, for instance, on how to deal with employees coming onto the premises. So those are all going to be very important things to follow. In terms of defending claims once they're brought, I think that remains to be seen at this point. We haven't really had those develop in any meaningful way yet. Those lawsuits are just now getting filed. I mean, one of the things is I think the science, as I mentioned before, is not well settled yet on how you can even pinpoint when someone actually obtained the virus. So all of those things are going to become important as time goes by and feed into how these claims get resolved.
Mark Cooper, partner and attorney at the Jaffe Law Firm. Anything else you'd like to tell us today on the Megacast? Anything else that we haven't touched on that you believe would be important for our audience, for local businesses to know right now?
The only thing I'd point out is that insurance policies are oftentimes very complex, and they require a careful reading. It's very important to have someone do that for you if you have any concerns about whether coverage is going to be afforded for a loss. Don't just assume your claims aren't covered, although that may be the trend, and perhaps this today sounds a little on the negative side as opposed to optimistic in terms of insurance coverage. That doesn't mean the claims aren't there, and all of these should be examined pretty closely.
And if someone needs to get in contact with you, they have some questions that we maybe didn't cover today, how can they get in contact with you, Mark?
So you can find me on our law firm's website, which is www.jaffelaw.com. That's JAFFELAW.com. We actually have a COVID-19 resource folder on our website. So a lot of the information we just sort of touched on today is available on there. It covers everything from the different government loans we've been discussing to the employment issues to the insurance topics we've been over.
Mark Cooper, partner and attorney at the Jaffe Law Firm. Thank you very much for joining us today on the Megacast.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
And we appreciate you coming on to the show today and giving us some information and some knowledge about the insurance world right now, what legal steps that local businesses of all kinds and of all sizes can take to protect themselves, because it's even as Mark had said in our interview, it's a difficult time. It's a multi-level. There are multiple levels of problems that may arise for these businesses regarding to insurance, regarding to legal policies, as it pertains to how they protect their employees and others on the job. It's a difficult time, and you need to have that information. It's good to have that information. I think one big theme that we've experienced so far on today's program is education is just so key on every level as we come out of this coronavirus crisis, slowly but surely, because you have a lot of things that you need to learn for businesses. Local businesses have a lot to learn to protect themselves and to better themselves going forward. And same thing with schools, learning how to learn virtually, how to teach virtually. Same with your family. How do you protect yourself and protect your kids as you're coming out of your home? And following those guidelines, hopefully, and keeping yourself safe and other people safe. And for local places of recreation, for families that are out and about on the town that want to go back out to shop and to eat, how do you protect yourself? And for these businesses, how do you protect your employees? How do you protect your customers? What actions can you take if problems do arise? It's always best to have as much good information as you can possibly have so that you can make an informed decision and that you can make the best decision for yourself and for others, because it's that saying we keep hearing all and over again. It's become the cliche of our times. We're in this together. We have to make those efforts individually to help other individuals and just help each other all in the process. So keeping informed is absolutely huge, and you can do that a lot easier by joining us on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. This is where you'll have a one-stop resource for information from all of our coverage area. You live in Birmingham. I want to learn information just about the city of Birmingham. That's where I live. You can click on that link, and it's going to bring you to the city of Birmingham's COVID-19 information website. That's information from the mayor, from the community's resources. and information specifically for residents about city affairs during the COVID-19 pandemic, and also different headlines, different information that we can learn about from the local area. Like we talked with Dr. Melanie Schwartz earlier on in this first hour of the program, Oakland County has formed a new task force established to reduce social isolation amongst the senior population, which is absolutely huge right now, and they definitely need that kind of help. This task force is going to include 3 commissioners and community experts, and will include treatment techniques like training for technological devices like smartphones and other internet-connected devices, more access to health care. This senior connectedness task force, something that's big in this community, and maybe it's going to help your grandmother, your mother, your friends, your coworkers who may be seniors that are in isolation right now because they're a vulnerable population. So any way that you can help them, and there may be ways through the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, through the county program, this Senior Connectedness Task Force, that could help you in our senior population or someone you know and love in our senior population. And you can get all that information and other stories on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, or by staying tuned right here to the Megacast on our family of stations, 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, 89.3 Lakes FM, live streaming online at lakesfm.com. 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. The BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District under the direction of station manager Ron Whittables, and WAHS, and my apologies, 89.5 WAHS Auburn Hills, WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, that a service of the Avondale Schools, and pushing the buttons over there, helping us out, our engineer on WAHS, Logan Pizzurro, doing an excellent job keeping us on the air over there and informing the people of Auburn Hills and surrounding areas on the Megacast. That's what we do. We help keep you informed, and we'll do that in just a moment. We'll come back and speak to a realty expert, Alan Mindell from National Realty Centers on the Megacast. You are watching us on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, listening on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 The Biff, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. The Megacast returns shortly.
Coronavirus is deadly, but Michigan can fight back. Our front doors are the front lines of defense. Staying home is the best way to stop the spread, because just one infected person can give it to 40, who can give it to countless more. So call Grandma, don't visit. Video chat, don't meet up. And if you must go out for food or medicine, keep at least 6 feet from others. Stay home, stay safe, stop the spread.
Technology like smartphones are wonderful devices to reduce social isolation in older adults. You can call grandchildren, phone friends, participate in fitness classes, and play games. But you need to stay mindful of scams. Scams related to the COVID-19 virus are rising. These include attempts to obtain personal information from seniors, including pitching unreliable products, advice, tests, and cures. You need to stay vigilant and be cautious. If you feel that you have been taken advantage of, it's okay for you to reach out to somebody you know and seek out advice, or even contact your medical provider. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter. Our top priority remains slowing the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. Please stay home, and when you must go out to an essential business, take precautions like social distancing and washing your hands when you come home. Because of the pandemic, we are behind in our response rate in Michigan. While you are home, please take a few minutes to fill out the census. It is more important than ever that we receive money back from our federal government. The census is Oakland Together.
The Oakland County Megacast, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, WAHS, 89.5, Avondale Community Radio, and on television, Civic Center TV, Comcast Channel 15, AT&T Channel 99, Same deal with Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, Comcast, Channel 15. In Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin. An indie community and public access television guide on AT&T and their cable systems in the local area. And you can also watch us online in HD on our website on civiccentertv.com and on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield Police Department, our Facebook partner for this beautiful Wednesday in Oakland County. We thank them very much for having us on their page today and helping us spread the good word and the local news and information that you need to know. Information like we just heard from County Executive Dave Coulter in that break about the U.S. Census. Very important that you fill that out. Still plenty of time to fill that out. You have until October to do so. You can do that at, I believe it's 2020uscensus.org. Let me just quickly double check that information. It is 2020census.gov. 2020census.gov is where you can go to fill out the U.S. Census. It doesn't take very long, just a few minutes, and it's absolutely huge. Filling that out, it has a big impact on your hometown, your municipality, and the funds that they get from the federal government. Still plenty of time to fill it out. It usually is done by this time, but because of the pandemic, it's been extended to October, so highly recommend that you fill that out as soon as you possibly can. We'll continue to keep you informed about the census and other issues that have relation to COVID-19 in our community, including what's going on with the local housing market. And to join us and talk about that, we have Alan Mindell. He is from the National Realty Centers, joining us now on the Megacast. Alan, thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Tyler, and thank you for having me on your show today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you with us. How are you holding up during this? How's your team, your family?
Oh, thank you for asking, Tyler. Everybody seems to be doing well. Yeah, everybody's doing good, hanging in there. I don't know if we should say hanging in or hanging on. How about you?
Same here, hanging in, hanging on, doing the best we can. I think that's all we can hope for right now. So May 7th, that is tomorrow. It's when construction reopens, realty and home selling in state that industries restrictions are being officially lifted through an executive order enacted last week by Governor Whitmer. With that returning, showings, staging, maybe other actions like closings have been off for a long time. How has the housing market locally been impacted by COVID-19?
Well, Tyler, it's a really good question. I want to preface what I'm going to talk about with you today with a lot of empathy for the devastation this pandemic has had on millions of people. I think about the staggering number of business owners and their families impacted and will suffer, financial hardship, as well as those who have died from this horrific virus, and in the aftermath that their loved ones must endure. In addition to the loss, they're forced to grieve in isolation instead of being able to hold the hands of friends and family to help alleviate at least some of the pain. This is utterly incomprehensible to me, Tyler. But what we're talking about today is hope. A hope that all of us will survive, both literally and economically. There's a little, like you were just speaking about, there's a ray of sunshine for the real estate industry. Michigan Realtors in Lansing, formerly known as MAR, which stands for Michigan Association of Realtors, over the past many weeks, we've made many appeals to the governor's office. And as you just indicated, we finally prevailed. And, with this executive order 2020-70, along with the other resumptions that you also just alluded to, this is going to really help us stimulate the economy. And it's an exciting move, towards normalcy for all of the, Michigan residents. So we're going to be able to physically show homes to many buyers who not only want to make a move, but need to make a move as well. And on the flip side of the coin, the sellers who are in similar situations, as we just kind of alluded to, they're able to sell their homes to hundreds, if not thousands, of buyers.
So right now, is it? Would you say it's a buyer's market or a seller's market? Is it a little bit of both?
Well, I think that in the sort of the understanding or the literal sense, it's a seller's market. Of course, it's governed by, appraisals and, the worth, the fair market value of a home, which is what a buyer is willing to pay.
So you're saying it's more of a seller's market, but there's some flexibility there as well for buyers.
Yeah, there is. So I don't know. I guess an example is in April. I'm going to go back to April of 2006, just as the real estate industry was beginning to crash. Okay, so Realcomm, our local MLS, which is in Farmington Hills at 12 and Farmington, I think it's the largest MLS system in Michigan. There are several. Another big one is on the east side. It's MI Real Source. And anyway, so they reported that in April of 2006 of condos and homes for sale, and this is the month of April, there was 94,815 homes. This April, and this is the entire MLS, 17,354. That's approximately an 82% drop in homes available to buyers. Okay. In Oakland County, the percentage is very similar. But the numbers are less. So it's 23,689 homes in 2006, and now this past April, 3,359 homes.
So
our industry is completely aware. Yep.
So there's a significantly smaller market available to buy from, which impacts both the buyers and the sellers market, so to speak.
Yes, the industry is completely aware over the past years that we're experiencing this huge reduction in available homes for sale. I don't know if the reduction is somehow a result, in some way of the impact that the crash had starting 12, 13 years ago. I'm not sure, but this is creating an urgency. And then on top of the already scarce amount of homes available for sale, we were impacted with COVID-19, which has had its own effect on what's happening in the market. And I have a good example. So because of the way things happen, we were only able, since about March 23rd, when the order went into effect, we were only able to show homes virtually. We weren't able to go out. So it's too soon to tell if how many homes that were shown virtually actually sold and will close. But I just listed a home on Monday. This is a personal experience of what we're kind of talking about. I just listed a home on Monday, and we have already numerous scheduled showings for Thursday, and we have an offer. Because it just came in yesterday afternoon late, I haven't even told the seller that we have an offer that's over asking. And to me, that's pretty incredible. They want to buy the home sight unseen. And of course, they're going to inspect the home and they'll see it then. But this is how urgent the urgency that people are feeling to buy homes and the scarcity.
So with that being said, this current disaster from a realty standpoint, does it compare to the housing crash in any way? Is this a less severe situation, similarly severe situation? What are the differences that you've experienced as an expert in this, Alan Mindell from National Realty Centers? What are the similarities and maybe the differences between this current crisis and the housing market crash that we saw around 2008?
What happened in 2008 is just it it boggles my mind. I mean, at that time, I had a lot of homes for sale, listed for sale, and they weren't selling. Nobody knew why. They just sat there. And when we list homes as real estate agents, we use market data that is available to us. So almost like an appraiser is going to use market data that's available, and assessors, we do the same thing. So we look at homes that have sold that are similar to the homes that we want to list, and we price them accordingly. And that's what I was doing at that time. And the homes wouldn't sell. They weren't selling. No one knew why. And then, of course, we all knew what happened after that. This is different. This is a different situation. I don't, we had a very strong economy going into this, and I don't think we have seen the full effect of what's going to happen. So, but I do know that what's happening now is people want to buy. And I think that the people who want to buy, the agent that put in this offer, he told me that they have lost a number of opportunities, and they don't want to miss his buyer does not want to miss this house. They've only seen the photographs, but she wants to buy it anyway.
Well, that's good news. That's good to hear, Alan Mindell from National Realty Centers, that this industry that's been highly restricted of late because, of course, a lot of it is in-person showings and staging, and that's a lot of interaction, that there's been some perseverance through this, even though there's been restrictions, that now, as those restrictions are lifted, that the industry can kind of have a little bit of a comeback from whatever step backs may have occurred due to stay-at-home orders and state of emergency and so on. But like everything else, the real estate industry, every other industry, life in general is changed. We're under this new normal. What do you imagine that new normal looking like for the real estate industry, for the act of buying or selling a home? How are things going to be changed? How is that going to impact the market, buyers, sellers, and so on?
Well, can I share with you some of the things that me and the people that I'm working with, what our plans are?
Sure.
Okay, so what I plan on doing with like the sellers is, obviously we want to not only help them prepare their homes for sale, be it like you had mentioned, staging and so on. We want to make sure that they understand the importance of demonstrating to their prospective buyers that their home has been, well maintained and is sanitized appropriately so that they can feel comfortable when they come in to see the home. And on the other side of the coin, we have the buyers, and the buyers that I'm working with, I'm already telling them that, I plan on arriving a half an hour before they do. And, I'm going to come with my can of Lysol and box of Lysol wipes, and I'm going to spray the rooms, and I'm going to wipe down all the surfaces that they're going to be touching. I'm going to ask them to please limit their contact with surfaces that they don't have to touch. So I'm going to be wiping down the doorknobs, light switches, and so on, so that they feel comfortable when they enter this home, that they're entering it and they're going to be, safe. And I will provide, if they don't have masks, I'll have brand new fresh masks in a box and gloves as well, so that they can have another layer of protection.
And that's good to hear. Protections are going to be there. The safety measures are going to be there. And as industries reopen, they need to be able to comply with those measures, both to keep them legally safe and
Yes.
and to keep them permitted to be open, so they don't have those restrictions fall back, so that we don't fall back in our lifting of these restrictions and our reopening of the economy, and of course for the safety of the people showing the homes, selling the homes, and buying the homes. Alan Mindell from National Realty Centers, thank you for joining us on the Megacast. Before I let you
You're
go,
welcome,
anything else that you'd like to say?
Well, I wish you and yours, good month, and hope everything continues to move in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. He was Alan Mindell from National Realty Centers joining us on the Megacast on Civic Center TV, Comcast Channel 15, and AT&T Channel 99. On Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, Comcast Channel 15. Also in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and in Franklin. And on the radio, on our family of radio stations, our flagship radio station, of course, 89.3 Lakes FM and lakesfm.com, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff out of Bloomfield Hills High School with station manager Ron Whittables, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, Logan Pizzuro getting us on the air over there from his home, remotely getting us on air to Avondale Schools' radio station, WAHS 89.5. Put us on there. 3 great radio stations, community radio stations, partnering together to provide this great service to our community, keeping you informed. We have these guests that are coming on that are in various areas of expertise and are able to keep you informed on what's going on in your backyard. What's the news in the community? How's the business community doing? How are things throughout Michigan and throughout Oakland County keeping up, and to keep you informed as well. And if you happen to miss any of our episodes or can't tune in for the entirety of the shows, we encourage you to always tune in live to us and our family of stations. But in the event that you miss part of the show and you can't tune in, you have other things to do around town, go to civiccentertv.com and click on Megacast. And on this page, you're going to find all of our content, full episodes, short clips, and full interviews. So, if you missed our great interview earlier on in the show with Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, later on today, click on full interviews. It'll take you to a new page with all of our recent interviews on the Megacast, and you'll be able to watch our interview with Dr. Melanie Schwartz from today's show right there and get information that you need to know on the psychology of the situation. Why do some people not want to wear their masks? How can I best teach my teenage child to wear their masks and to keep their social distance with their friends and to follow these new guidelines in place for our safety? All of that and other interviews and other content can be found on our website on civiccentertv.com/megacast, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus for up-to-date news. We are constantly putting new stories on there from Oakland County, from the state of Michigan, right in your backyard, as well as access to reputable information sources like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on the federal level, to the state of Michigan, and to, of course, Oakland County, where we are broadcasting. This is the Oakland County Megacast. I am Tyler Keith. We will return in just a moment with the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. He is John McNamara, and will be with us coming up after this short break. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
I know you're concerned about the coronavirus, and we're working hard to combat its spread and keep your family safe. But we need your help too. Wash your hands often with soap for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your face and cough into your sleeve. Replace handshakes with an elbow bump. Avoid large crowds or events, and if you're sick, stay home and call your health provider. Every one of us can make a difference limiting the virus's spread and keeping Michigan healthy.
Watching and listening to the Megacast on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access Television, West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake, Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin. Listening to us on the radio on 3 great radio stations, 89.3 Lakes FM 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, 3 community radio stations helping to bring you news and information that you need to know about the coronavirus pandemic in the Oakland County area, with help of special guests that are coming on with different information and expertise from a variety of industries throughout Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan. And joining us now, someone with some expertise in a couple of different areas of business in our state that have been hit pretty hard by this, but also been innovating really well during the coronavirus pandemic, and that is our restaurants, our bars, and our lodging. We are joined now by John McNamara. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. John, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me this morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Restaurants have been some of the most creative and innovative people in all industries in our economy. It's been amazing to watch the work that they do. So John, we've been seeing this throughout this. What does that say or confirm about our state's restaurant industry?
I think it's that obviously, there are 600,000 people who are employed in the hospitality industry. It's the second largest employer in the state. So these are people who are fighting for their livelihood, so that when we can reopen and when life, starts to get back to normal, that job's going to be there for them. That they're willing to get creative and obviously do things like operate restaurants as a grocery store and focus on curbside to go, so that they can have a job when this is all over.
And is that generally helping to keep this industry alive? And how do you think that that's going to change the situation for these different restaurants and bars going forward? How are they forever going to be different for better or for worse as a result of this?
I think that's going to depend. Obviously right now we have data that says 20 restaurants a day will close in the month of May, and those restaurants unfortunately will not reopen. 2% of restaurants in the state have already closed their doors permanently. So I think in the short term, you're going to see probably a limited menu at restaurants. You're going to see, different social distancing practices, and it's going to be a different world for a while. But we're confident that, our members and all restaurateurs and their employees are going to find a way to get through this. And obviously, I think the general public is excited to get back out there and, see servers and bartenders and hostesses they haven't seen for a while and enjoy some of their favorite places that they haven't been able to go to.
Oh, they absolutely are, and it's been great to go out lately to local restaurants near our offices here in West Bloomfield, near where I live, out in the Wixom and Novi area, and see a lot of these restaurants that are doing curbside and are doing delivery just be packed and have plenty of business. It's great to see that support from our community to these businesses. From your communication with these restaurants and these bars locally, how do they feel? How's the response from the community been able to help lift their spirits and keep them motivated during all of this?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's great to see things like that, and it's great that people have been generous with tips and sort of have been tipping like they got a very good dine-in service, but obviously have been either having it brought to their car or grabbing it to go. But 51% of the meals in this country are provided by restaurants. So if restaurants were ever to fail massively or force closed, you'd have a massive run on the supply chain and grocery stores. So I think people are now recognizing even more the valuable service that restaurants provides. And while there are places for celebration and to meet with friends, they're also a sort of a livelihood and a life source of food in this state and in this country. And we need them to come back, and we need to come back at full force.
John McNamara joining us, the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Just give us a little bit of background, John, on what the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association is and what its relationship is with these restaurants, with these bars, and with lodging, and how do you help that industry?
So up until about 2 years ago, we were just the Michigan Restaurant Association. Then we merged and became the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. So essentially what we do is advocate at the state, federal, and local level for issues that are pertinent in the hospitality industry. Obviously, that changed a little bit when we became merged with lodging, and there was definitely some education and some things to learn on our end of what the issues were for lodging members and how that's different than restaurants. But any sort of issues that restaurants might have, or any sort of, initiative they think at this local, state, or federal level, they think they can do, to be more business friendly. We'll go out and we'll work with the legislature and be a liaison between the two, just to sort of educate on how they can be create a better environment for restaurants and the hospitality industry in general here in Michigan.
And so just for example purposes, during this crisis, a lot of these restaurants and definitely the lodging industry has been affected by the coronavirus and all these shutdowns and whatnot. How has your organization worked? What are some examples of your organization working with the legislature, working with the state government to maybe ease some of those restrictions or provide the aid that these restaurants and these lodging businesses need to stay alive during and after this?
Sure. Yeah. One of them has been some delaying of sales use and withholding tax. Those have been delayed twice. Some licensing fees have been reduced. Some extension of liquor licenses have been bumped back. And then also in partnership with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, we were able to initiate, with the help of the legislature, as well as with the governor's office and the attorney general's office, a liquor buyback program where a lot of these bars and restaurants really stocked up here in late February, early March, because you had Big Ten tournament, you had March Madness, and you had St. Patrick's Day right around the corner. And for some of these people, those are their biggest couple weeks of the year. And then unfortunately, they were forced to close, and obviously those celebrations never took place. So the way the program worked is that they could provide an inventory of any unopened product they had purchased to the Liquor Control Commission. The Liquor Control Commission would verify that that was correct, and they provided them 100%, essentially a buyback, where that liquidity went back to the hands immediately. And then 90 days after they're allowed to reopen, they can slowly start paying that back in the form of a short-term loan. So it injected just over $3 million, to 3.3 to be exact, and 657 people took advantage of this. So it was some much-needed liquidity into the hands of our members and some non-members, obviously, which is perfectly great. We want everyone to come back and come back strong. But it was a way to get some much-needed cash in their hands quickly.
And yeah, it was absolutely needed with these bars, especially with March Madness, with Big Ten tournament. St. Patrick's Day is a big one as well. Yeah. Getting that money back in their hands, similar to the Paycheck Protection Program with some small businesses, and similar to the economic stimulus packages for providing funds to every citizen in the U.S. It took some time to get those in place and get those funds out there. How long did it take to get those funds in this program back to these bars and back in their pockets so they could continue to operate? And with this program being enacted so swiftly, how many businesses do you believe or do you know were saved by this?
That will be tough to tell, because unfortunately we don't know how public perception is going to be, and we don't, unfortunately no one knows. No one has a crystal ball, and no one knows when they'll be reopened. But I can definitely say for some, this will absolutely make the difference. It was some much needed liquidity, and an additional advantage is, obviously if there was any product that wasn't popular or wasn't able, they just weren't using. Maybe they ordered a bunch thinking it would be popular. It was a way to get. They could return that as well and get some money for that. So obviously there's more work to be done. We're in constant contact with both the state and federal governments about how they can help with this recovery. But want to thank the Liquor Control Commission, the governor's office, the attorney general's office, and the legislature for all their work in helping get this program through.
John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Where does the restaurant industry go from here? Some elements will be forever changed. Some normalcy will return. What's your organization's forecast on what the new normal will be and what that's going to mean for the restaurant side of what your agency covers?
I think you're going to have obviously a short-term new normal where you're going to see 6 feet in between tables. You're going to see probably a lot of people wearing masks. You're going to see both patrons and staff wearing masks, obviously, except when they're eating. I think you're going to see some increase, obviously, safety protocols. And then I think, as time adjusts, we'll move back toward where we used to be. But then there are going to be some things that they will probably, never be the way they were. I think it's going to be a while before you see things like buffets come back and things like that. So it's going to be part gauging public perception. when restaurants are allowed to reopen, even in limited capacity. I think it's going to be a lot of education on both the customer's part and the owner's part about, one, what customers want to see in restaurants, and then how they can provide that with their staff, but still allowing their staff to do their jobs. Obviously, it would be tough if you're in a kitchen with a mask on and gloves on to sort of do your job. Those are already sort of cramped, hot environments. So I think it's going to, require everyone to have some patience and have some open-mindedness, and really, figure out how this is all going to work, because, no one's ever done this before. So it's going to be interesting, and we're going to have to be nimble, but we're going to figure it out together. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And on the part of those that are patrons of these restaurants and these bars, it is going to take patience. We're going to have to expect to see more lines and a little bit more wait time and wait for that intricacy that's going to go into keeping these businesses running as normally as possible while also as safely as possible. Transitioning now, the other end of the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association has to do, of course, with lodging, and we haven't heard maybe a lot in the news necessarily about how the lodging industry in our state has been impacted. How has it been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis, John?
I mean, we're seeing occupancy rates right around, if not lower than 20% across the state. Really, to even break even, hotels need to be at closer to 35% of that. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of hotels who have just closed and are hoping to weather this storm and come out the other end. But the big thing about lodging is going to be, when this is all over, are people going to want to travel? Personally, I can't wait to get back out there all over Michigan and visit friends I haven't seen, and, go to bars and restaurants I haven't seen. But, we really don't know what this summer travel season is going to look like. Obviously, Memorial Day is probably not going to be great, and who knows about 4th of July. So, we're hopeful that people will want to get back out there and get back out into pure Michigan, but we really don't know. And that's going to be even more of a wait and see what happens of how the public responds to being able to, travel freely again.
Just how huge is the summer for this lodging market, with people traveling up north and traveling across the state to various locations? And how is a potentially slower summer with the social distancing measures going to impact negatively or in other ways the lodging industry?
If they were to lose the entire, if obviously May's going to be terrible, and there's just no way around that. And we understand why. We understand why these restrictions are in place. However, if they were to lose June and July, it'd be devastating, especially, obviously northern Michigan depends on these summers, not only, to carry them through the year, but also, this is employment for a lot of people up north in the summer. It's employment for high school kids. It's employment for college kids who are home. It's employment, even for some full-time adults, and even some people who pick up some extra work in the summer. Obviously Mackinac Island is the gem of our state, but they depend on June, July, and August there to carry them through the year, because obviously after Halloween, no one's up there. So a missed summer would be absolutely devastating for the industry as a whole, but would be even worse for northern Michigan.
So what can people do? What can people like myself and my neighbors and other people in our community and throughout the state do to help this industry right now, even if we don't know if things are going to be the way they are currently or are going to be different for the better in a couple of months? What can we do right now to help the lodging industry in our state?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think one is just keep in mind that, obviously we are already in an industry that is focused on safety, that is focused on protecting people. No one wants to get anyone sick who comes into their restaurant or who comes into their hotel or who comes into their bar. So we were already in an industry focused on cleanliness, focused on safety, and that's only going to be ramped up. So, just trust that no one wants to see anyone get sick in any industry, but especially in the hospitality industry. Secondly, and then it's just trust. If you want to go out, trust it's going to be safe. If you want to go to Traverse City, understand that hotels and bars and restaurants are doing everything that they can to make sure that it is as safe as it can be. As I mentioned before, give a little grace, give a little patience. You're probably going to see some limited menus due to some impacts in the supply chain. You're going to probably see some longer wait times just due to the fact that there's a lot of different safety protocols going on. Thirdly, there is a hospitality relief fund available at our website. There's a lot of different merchandise you can buy. There's a concert series going on where if you want to donate to that, employees can apply, and it's for things like car payments, student loan payments, rent, money for their kids to go back to school. So that's a way you can directly help the employees. But I would say other than that, when you can, get out there and enjoy all those places you haven't been able to enjoy for the past couple months.
Absolutely, and that fund I think is fantastic and will be a huge help definitely for those working in the industry. If you send that information, you have our information from our producers. You can go ahead and send that link to them. We'll do our best to get some information about that out to the greater community. Similarly, the restaurant industry I asked earlier, where does lodging go from here? What's the future as a result of COVID-19?
I think you're probably going to see some more social distancing practices in hotels. I think for a while, the days of lounging in the lobby, having that free continental breakfast that a lot of people enjoy is probably gone for a bit. I think you're going to see more probably things like yogurt and a granola bar and a banana and a bottle of water and a bag to go. We are working right now on increasing safety protocols for things like pools and spas and gyms. We're working on increasing safety protocols at check-in. So I think you're probably going to see some things like touchless check-in, where you check in online, and maybe your key's waiting for you somewhere and you really never interact, maybe never interact with someone at the front desk unless you need to. And I think some of these will be temporary until we have a vaccine. We know it's safe to interact again, but this is an industry based on being social. So eventually we are going to have to get to get back to the point where you can be social, but you can do it safely. We've been working for months to, put those protocols together. I think you're going to see something here soon about sort of the Restaurant and Lodgings Association's plan on how we can do that. We've been working both with the National Restaurant Association and the American Hotel and Lodging Association on national best practices and talking with other states who have already opened. I had a conversation yesterday with my counterpart in Texas, as well as my counterpart in Georgia, about what they're doing, what they're seeing in their restaurants, what's working, what's not, so that, we can take those, learn from them. And then when Michigan reopens, hopefully, have a lot of those kinks worked out ahead of time.
So there's going to be increased safety measures being taken, different actions being put into place to mitigate concerns from this crisis and definitely issues from this crisis. But you also mentioned earlier that trust from the population, from the customer base is going to be huge in this.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't aware that a lot of hotels were still in operation and still in normal operations. What are they doing right now to increase those safety standards that they already had in place, that were already in very much in tip-top shape before? What are they doing right now if people are concerned about traveling to see family and staying in a hotel because they want to maintain social distance?
Sure.
What are they doing?
So right now, obviously, with occupancy rates at 20% or less, they can space people in between rooms and have 2 or 3 rooms in between people. There are obviously, it used to be sort of a couple times a day they would, wipe down everything. They are now wiping everything down numerous times a day. Every single door handle gets wiped down numerous times a day. Every single key card is wiped down. We're seeing people who are even, have, every time a pen is touched, it goes into a separate area and gets wiped down before it's being touched by another guest. Obviously, everyone has abandoned, continental buffet breakfast and has switched to even, going outside someone's room and placing the brown bag with a granola bar, a bottle of water, and a piece of fruit. So they don't even have to walk up to the desk to get it and interact with someone. So obviously they're doing everything they can right now to accommodate the guests they have, a lot of which are either necessary business or, people who are out there fighting on the front lines, helping to care for people in hospitals or healthcare facilities.
John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Before we go, if restaurants, bars, hotels, and so on are not members of your association or need some help and need a resource, how can they get in contact with you, and how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
Yep, you can go to our website, mrla.org. We have a COVID-19 landing page, which has an abundance of resources. A big shout out to our communications and membership team for all their hard work in getting all that together. If you can't find a resource there, you can click on staff and find my name and email. However, I'm happy to provide it now. My cell phone is 517-581-0898, and my email is jmcnamara, MCNAMARA @mrla.org. And we're definitely here to help anyone in the hospitality industry through this time, even if it's just a quick question. We're absolutely here to help.
And any lasting advice for restaurants and lodging businesses going forward as things open up and recover, hopefully?
I think, obviously use us as a resource, absolutely, but also, use your best judgment. And I think if you do what you think is best and you act in good faith, the general public will recognize that. And I think everyone understands that there's going to be some patience, there's going to be some learning, but that, everyone wants to get back out. Everyone wants to see restaurants, bars, and hotels thrive again. And hopefully we see that sooner rather than later here in Michigan.
Absolutely. John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. We thank you very much for joining us today, John.
Thank you very much.
John McNamara, Vice President, Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, with us on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, WAHS, 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, and on television on Birmingham Municipal Access, Area Municipal Access Television, or BAMA, in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin, and on our flagship television station, Civic Center TV, Comcast Channel 15, AT&T Channel 99, and online in HD on civiccentertv.com. And that's serving, of course, the communities of West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake, here with our show, the Oakland County Megacast, bringing you information from a variety of guests. And it was good to hear from John McNamara about the state of our restaurants, the state of our lodging industry in Michigan, especially from the lodging angle. That was really interesting, how they've been hit and how they're still alive. Very much. Hotels are still open. They're taking these precautions, and the next few months are going to be huge. And if there's any way that we, the population, can put that trust into these industries that are big for Michigan's economy, he encourages us to do that, and his industry, his association, Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, encourages that. And there are ways we can help these industries while maintaining safety and while maintaining confidence in them as well. We also have some breaking news coming in. This from the Detroit Free Press. The Michigan House and Senate are suing Governor Whitmer over emergency powers. This is from Paul Egan at the Detroit Free Press. The Republican leaders in the House and Senate filed a lawsuit Wednesday against the governor, alleging her Thursday extension of the state of emergency over coronavirus pandemic from last week as unlawful. The law in Michigan is, quote, very clear, says House Speaker Lee Chatfield, Republican, at a Capitol News conference. Quote, only the legislature has the power to extend the state of emergency. So we heard some news earlier on in the week that the Michigan legislature, the Republican legislature, was not going to sue. They were going to wait till after this. And then today, that breaking news coming in, they have filed a lawsuit. It'll be interesting to see whether that will be addressed later on today if Governor Whitmer does have another press conference. She's usually had those 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We shall see how that goes. The fight continues in the state of Michigan for whom and how the emergency powers will be extended going forward. We're going to take a very quick break, and we will return next with Rob Scripture. He is the assessing director for West Bloomfield Township. He'll talk about West Bloomfield's 5-phase plan to return Town Hall to normal operations. That coming up on the Megacast right after this short break.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonay Caldoun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Yes, there is. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Medical Director Dr. Jonay Caldoun. Something we can do to help prevent COVID-19 and help all the people in our community. We talked to Dr. Melanie Schwartz earlier on the show about our senior population, some of the struggles that they're having with their mental health during this crisis, and reaching out to them, having a conversation, having a dialogue, keeping that going is absolutely critical. Tyler Keefe here in the Lakes FM studios, 89.3 Lakes FM, lakesfm.com, 88.1 The Biff, WBFH, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, a service of Avondale Schools out of Auburn Hills. And on TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access and Civic Center TV on the Megacast. Just a few more minutes, just about 10 minutes left in the program, and we're joined now by West Bloomfield Township Assessing Director Rob Scripture on the Megacast. Rob, thank you for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. So West Bloomfield has a plan in place to gradually return to some sort of normal operations. Before we get to that, what is West Bloomfield's operations at Town Hall looking like right now? What's it looked like during this crisis?
So right now, for the past month and a half, a little over a month and a half, we've been most of it's been handled from home. So we have no public coming in and out of the facility. All mail is still being processed as we're getting it. Our phone calls are still being answered, and we're doing business as usual as best we can, not having the doors open.
So just a limited crew over there. I've known for the meetings, the only person that's been on site for the township board meetings has been Steve Kaplan and IT director Harry Palmer and so on. So there definitely are some serious precautions being taken at Town Hall. And as things reopen all throughout the state, different industries reopen, so do municipalities. And how are municipalities being maybe required? Are they required right now to be putting together those plans?
Yes, the last governor's orders said that if you're going to reopen and bring staff back to the facility, you have to have a restoration plan or a recovery plan. And so, the township of West Bloomfield has been working on this restoration plan for a little over a month. Believe it or not, it started back when I guess China and Italy were in the middle of their issues, and much of this plan really started with any research that they provided in terms of their plans for restoring operations. So that's how long we've been working on it.
And the township board met late last week to enact those plans. It's a phased plan, multiple phases, multiple factors going in to how each step is taken and then executed. Just give us a little bit of an overview for those watching in West Bloomfield and for others in other municipalities that are curious about how one of these plans looks. Give us just a brief overview.
Brief overview, just looking at the phases, the first phase is really to bring back our supervisory and our directing staff to get their departments ready for the staff to return. And, there's a lot of work that's been done already in terms of our procedures, our requirements, our signage, our social distancing measures, and really when they're coming back for the first phase, they're determining how to conduct work at home and at the building if we are not open and if we are open. So really it's a plan within a plan. These departments need to come back right now and make their, I guess, internal plans as to how to conduct business depending on where we are during this plan. That is the first phase. The second phase is it's going to return the staff to work. I think currently we are looking at bringing the supervisory staff starting next week, and then the following week we're bringing back a limited number of our staff, and that's based upon what we believe is needed for phase 3. During that time, one of the most underrated issues with bringing back staff is that we work from home, and we know that there's a whole there's a whole different level of chaos or different environment than it is at work. And to acclimate our staff back to being at work, I think is going to be one of the biggest hurdles in bringing back operations. So that occurs in phase 2, bringing back the staff through the week of May 18th.
And later on, you also have phases in there that include limited public reentry and then lifted restrictions on who gets in to town hall from the public. And then eventually the final phase is going to be a full return to normal operations.
Yes.
But there's differences between these different phases. There's a time signature potentially between them, and there's factors that go in that decide whether you stay in phase 1 and move to phase 2, or stay in phase 2 and move to phase 3, or backtrack even if things do pick back up regarding coronavirus numbers. What factors go into determining when you move phases, how you move them, and if you may need to delay that?
Well, so you are 100% correct. The plan was designed so that our township board could implement any phase by itself and still continue operations here at the township, which is it's a unique tool to have. In phase 3, we do introduce a limited amount of residents or visitors into the township, we continuously monitor the news, such as yourself. We look at guidance from our health department. We look at the CDC recommendations, and the board takes that all into consideration before making changes to the next phase.
So you mentioned that the board's making this decision. Are they holding special meetings to do that? Is that something that the power goes to the township supervisor to enact that with the board's permission? How is that being enacted specifically?
So the board implemented the plan, and the board will ultimately decide as to where the plan should go day by day. The supervisor will make those recommendations to the board.
Okay, so supervisor will make those recommendations, and then township board moves from there, and then the plan does move forward. So just to kind of go back and as you prepare to bring people back to town hall, employees back, and then eventually the public back, during this crisis, with those that have been at town hall, what steps have been taken, safety measures and precautions? What steps will continue to be taken in each of these phases? We only have a couple more minutes to keep the great numbers that West Bloomfield has right now at town hall. Steve Kaplan mentioned at the previous township board meeting that 0 out of the 91 West Bloomfield town hall employees have had a run-in with COVID-19 thus far. How do you keep that up? What precautions is the township taking and will be taking going forward?
So, we have many of the preventative measures that we see in we go to the grocery store, we go to the hardware store, and we've seen the social distancing markers. We've seen the plexiglass sneeze guards. We are doing much of the same thing, and we are implementing a temperature measurement, arriving at work and before you go home, because really this battle does not end just by coming into work. We don't feel that bringing this problem home is a solution either. So, we'll be doing both monitoring, coming in and leaving for home. The social distancing markers that we've seen at stores, they'll be on the floors. All of the township staff will be helpful in guiding through some of these changes. We understand that, stay at home, there are individuals that have actually stayed at home and have not seen these measures yet. So, coming out, we don't want them to be afraid of town hall. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just changes. There's a lot of changes that are done to protect everyone.
A lot of changes being done indeed all across the board, but especially in our municipalities as they plan to make their reopening. Rob Scripture, the assessing director for West Bloomfield Township, thank you very much for joining us today on the Megacast.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you. Rob Scripture, assessing director from West Bloomfield Township. Their 5-phase plan approved by the West Bloomfield Township Board last week to gradually reopen West Bloomfield Town Hall as this crisis continues and we slowly but surely as a society emerge back out from under the coronavirus umbrella, so to speak. And industries reopen, so do municipalities, and they have a plan. They're required to have a plan. And this 5-phase plan by West Bloomfield Township, they went into it in detail in their previous meeting. It's really interesting. If you haven't watched that meeting, you can do that right here, civiccentertv.com. Go to On Demand, and you can watch our meetings by scrolling to them on the right side of the page. And it's interesting in that meeting, even if you're not in West Bloomfield, if you're in Birmingham, if you're in Bingham Farms, if you're in Franklin, Auburn Hills, Pontiac, just to see what goes in to one of these plans and have a better understanding of it. And then you have a better idea of questions that you can take to your municipality to learn about this. It's really interesting. And I'd like to just thank Rob Scripture and John McNamara, Alan Mindell, my apologies, Mark Cooper, Dr. Melanie Schwartz, and Curt Lawson, of course, for joining us today on the Megacast. We had a fantastic show, and we always enjoy them helping us out and helping to keep you, the people, informed. Another big thank you to our Zoom producer, Larry Nyland, to our executive producer, Jeff Cohen, and to the big boss, Dave Scott, General Manager of Civic Center TV, the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission, and our partnering TV station, Birmingham Municipal Access Television, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. This has been the Megacast. We'll be back tomorrow.